Simon, now we know, and I have to tip my hat to you and say you were right all along. The European Court of Justice has ruled this very morning, in the last hour, that FIFA and UEFA acted illegally in blocking the launch of the European Super League back in 2021. You might remember the morning that Simon and I were on with Danny Murphy. And what is going on? The Big Six are joining the Super League. My goodness, it caused absolute waves of controversy back then. It didn't come about because the fans railed against it. And you told us at the time, Simon, not so fast. There's a lot to go in this yet. And you're absolutely right. Now, lots of questions come out of this. Is the Super League now on its way back? And if it is, in what guise? Who is going to go along with it? The thing is, the ruling now opens the door to the Super League being relaunched in the knowledge that there'll be no punishments coming their way for clubs or for players who compete in it. Simon, what is your take? You did say, I told you so, and now this is what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think with due respect to the football process, I think most of the grown-ups in the room knew that this was going to be an outcome that was going to be put back into play, because when you get out of football, out of the banana republic of football governance, and you move into the legal system and you look at anti-competition and monopoly, you are always going to find yourself in a situation where governing bodies that are monopolising the commercial revenue streams surrounding European football and world football were going to be challenged legally. And so it has proven. No one's had the chutzpah to do it previously. No one's had the wherewithal. Football's on a different journey. And I really don't understand what all the furore's about, because put aside the initial reaction of the lack of meritocracy, because that was the only issue on the table. All the hysteria, all the hyperbole, all of the, the call to action for the fans to get involved was really and truly only about one thing, and should have only ever been about one thing: the lack of meritocracy, the lack of ability to get in there based upon your competitive achievements rather than who you've been in the past. So that was removed. Once that was removed, where's the hysteria? No one knows what this European Super League consists of, what it means. No one knows that it prejudices the domestic landscape any more than the creation of the Premier League prejudiced the English football pyramid. Yeah. It becomes another competition. And anybody that seems to sit there thinking that they would prefer to have FIFA and UEFA having complete and utter control over everything to do with European football must be deranged.
But is there room for another competition? I mean, are we really going to see the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool playing in the Champions League and in a European Super League?
Or why do you assume that there'll be a Champions League? Why do you not assume that this might be a completely different competition, or people opt out of the Champions League?
Well, they just revamped it.
Precisely. So have a look at that then. Have a look at what's going on with UEFA and the fact that this Champions League, which, by the way, is a contradiction in terms, because 95% of the teams in the Champions League are not actually champions. It's a league created based upon elitism, based upon commercial revenues. So it exists. It already exists. All of everybody's worst nightmares, apparently, already exist. And what you've now got is that the opportunity for somebody to come along, create an alternate format and say, well, why do you want to be with UEFA? Why do you want to be governed by UEFA? Isn't it an alternate opportunity to look at things in a different way? And what are the commercial benefits for everybody? Because one of the things that this group, who I do think are a little bit ragtag and bobtail, this A22, but notwithstanding it, they've got themselves in a position where they've created a landscape for people to be able to sit around a table and hatch the most fiendish of plans to be able to come back with a scenario which ticks all the boxes, which includes solidarity payments, protecting and preserving of the ultimate pyramids that are inside football clubs, inside leagues around the world. So all of this hysteria, all of this, hang on a second, they're going to break away from the Premier League. The rules were changed by the Premier League at the request of the member clubs of the Premier League. Reconvene the Premier League, they'll change the rules.
Well, Simon, it certainly looks from distance like this is one in the eye for FIFA and UEFA. Of that, there is no doubt.
Of course it is.
Alex Crook, our colleague, is on the line this morning because I think, Alex, you've already got UEFA reaction.
Yeah, good morning, guys. What a morning it's been already. UEFA pretty quick to get their statement out following that verdict by the European Court of Justice. They say they take note of the judgment that has been delivered in Luxembourg, but they go on to say this ruling does not signify an endorsement or validation of the so-called Super League. It rather underscores a pre-existing shortfall within UEFA's pre-authorization framework, a technical aspect that has already, they say, been acknowledged and addressed in June 2022. That's when they redrafted the rules for clubs competing in UEFA competition. They say they're confident in the robustness of their new rules, and specifically, they comply with all relevant European laws and regulations. They say UEFA, they remain resolute in its commitment to uphold the European football pyramid, ensuring it continues to serve the broader interests of society. We will continue, UEFA say, to shape the European sports model collectively with national associations, leagues, clubs, fans, players, coaches, EU institutions, governments and partners alike. And they've called upon the solidarity-based European football pyramid, fans and stakeholders to declare as their irreplaceable model will be safeguarded against the threat of breakaways by European and national laws. So there's a lot of jargon there, but basically UEFA are coming out and saying that their reform does now meet EU regulations, and they're confident that they've safeguarded against the European Super League being resuscitated. I'm not entirely convinced by that, but I've got a question for Simon. Is this not, Simon, just other big European leagues and clubs like Barcelona and Real Madrid? Is this not just a jealousy against what the Premier League has become? Are they not just trying to create a divide between the Premier League and the rest of European football because they want a piece of that pie?
I don't think it's about jealousy. I think it's about the commercial reality of the Premier League having created such a powerful pathway and knowing that there is even bigger prizes to be had. So with that in mind, they look at the commercial opportunities of what's next and where can it be taken to next. You know, we sit there and I'm perplexed by people's reaction to this, that in some shape or form that UEFA should be judge, jury and executioner of how competition is determined, what it looks like and what the landscape should be.
Someone's got to govern the game.
To an extent, and who holds them to account? And who provides competition? And who determines whether they are doing things in the right way? We've seen historically, and it shouldn't be forever the case that we lambast people for the deeds of others, but we have seen historically the behaviour of some of these organisations. I would say, in every walk of life, competition is something that's good. Competition that creates an opportunity for everything to evolve is a good thing.
Competition, yes, Simon, I get that, but you've got to have some order.
Of course you have. And I'm not suggesting it should be the Wild West. Football is already the Wild West. Football is already a cavalier, kangaroo court of things. And the reasons why this has been taken out of football's hands, like I said earlier on, I'm sorry that this sounds rather sweeping and pompous judgment. It is a banana republic. When you drag football people and football institutions out of the confines of their own self-serving nonsense and put them into the real world, more often than not, people find themselves being consequenced by the laws of the land rather than the banana republics that adjudicate football authorities.
I get that, Simon, but this changes everything because,
it doesn't.
Any other organisation now can come into play and say, right, what about the clubs in the lower half of the Premier League? We're going to start a competition. You're going to be in it. Come and join us.
No. Any organisation, realistically speaking, can put forward the construction of an idea that could be floated, mooted and discussed in reasonable, rational, fair and open-minded and transparent terms, rather than be governed by the fact that if you dare step out of the confines of the governance of UEFA or FIFA, and if you dare want to expand the opportunities within the confines of football that might be for the advancement of football, you cannot do that because UEFA will only determine what you can and can't do. So UEFA are not going to determine that someone else's idea is better because that's a turkey voting for Christmas. They're not going to turn around and suggest that someone else should pick up the mantle and run with the ball, metaphorically speaking, because it doesn't serve their purposes. And if you look at the ideas that may well float around, yes, the first representation of it was a poorly packaged, stupid, badly presented scenario. But the only issue behind it, and everyone loses their minds over this, you take away the meritocracy argument. You take away the self-serving bit of the legacy football clubs being in there protected, not in there on merit, but only be in there because of what they've done in the past. You remove that caveat, which, by the way, does have to be there because the financing of the Premier League, the reasons why the Premier League is getting 10 billion quid is not because of bloody Burnley, Crystal Palace, Sheffield United and anyone else. It's because of Liverpool, Man United and Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City and whoever else we can think of.
But this makes the richer clubs even richer.
No, it has to be caveated based. Well, the best get the best.
Of course it will.
Well, hang on. The best get the best already. So by definition, the best. Now, what you're looking at is the drag and tag effect. what happens to everybody else? So if the rich get richer, what happens to everybody else?
Well, they get left behind.
Well, not necessarily, because ultimately, in order for football clubs to want to be able to play fairly with collective responsibility, and for the overall governance of football, to some extent, to have meaning, rhyme and reason behind it, there has to be something in it for everybody. There was something in it 20, 30 years ago for the Football League when they were offered 25% of the broadcast revenues from the Premier League. And because they were so bloody stupid, they turned it down. And now they're sat there with 9%. Because now, here we are, 30 years on, with football maturing, the world seeing football as a huge business opportunity for everybody. Globalisation comes to fore. Why, in God's name, would you want it to be confined to one organisation?
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.